Hi, I'm Kent Sweeting from Queensland Orthotic Lab, and I'd like to introduce you to scanning for the Richie Brace. You no longer need to cast for the Richie Brace with our latest innovation, making it easier to prescribe the Richie Brace for your patients. We're able to digitally model and 3D print the Richie Brace, giving you unrivaled accuracy and assurance in prescribing the Richie Brace. To begin with, you require three things. Firstly, some scanning hardware. You can choose to scan with the structure sensor and iPad, or you can scan directly from a compatible iPhone using the front-facing camera. Secondly, you need to have downloaded the QOL 3D Scan app. In the QOL 3D Scan app, you just need to select your scanning hardware. Structure if you're using the structure sensor, or Liberty if you're using the front-facing camera on your compatible device. And finally, you'll need our patented ScanMate, or some other way of holding the foot in subtalar joint neutral. You also need to have access to our portal, MyQOL. Reach out to us if you don't already have access to MyQOL. So when you're ready to scan your patient, the first thing you're going to do is set up your patient with the foot in subtalar joint neutral and the mid-tarsal joint fully pronated, just as you would if you were taking a foot athletic scan. This is a critical step for scanning for the Richie Brace. We're unable to accept scans where the foot hasn't been positioned correctly, as this will lead to inferior patient outcomes, and we'll ask you to scan the patient again with the foot in subtalar joint neutral and mid-tarsal joint fully pronated. Please don't ask the patient just to hold the foot. We will ask you to rescan the patient if you send us a scan without the foot properly positioned. Our preferred method of setting up the foot is with our ScanMate. The ScanMate allows you to perfectly position the foot and can be used with the patient prone or supine. Alternatively, you can use an assistant to help with the scanning process. Just load the foot like this and get your assistant to use the iPad to take the scan. Once you have the patient's foot in the correct position, you want to put a little dot of semi-compressed felt on the inferior tips of the medial and lateral malleolus. You want to use a little bit of felt that's about 5 to 10 millimeters in diameter, about the size of your little fingernail. The felt that I'm using here is 5 millimeters thick, which will come up nicely on the scan. Now it's critical that these go on the inferior tips of the malleoli, not the widest part. In most patients, the inferior tip is about 10 to 20 mils lower than the widest part of the malleolus. You can also use some felt to mark out any other accommodations, such as navicular or styloid process accommodation. Now once the felt's on, you're ready to start scanning. Now critically, you want to open the MyQOL portal through your internet browser. So go to myqol.qolforfeet.com.au. Whilst you need to have our QOL 3D Scan app installed on your device, you always start the process in the portal. You're going to log into the MyQOL portal and select New. Then go through and fill out each section for the patient, and obviously you want to select Richie Brace as the order type. Select left foot, right foot, or both feet. Once you've filled out that, it will automatically take you to our scanning app. You can resize the foot outline using the toggle bar at the bottom, and you want to be about 50 centimeters back from the foot if you're scanning with the structure sensor, or 20 to 30 centimeters back if you're scanning directly from your iPhone. Then start the scan and ensure that you get the plantar surface, the posterior heel, and the medial and lateral borders, and you've definitely captured those felt dots on the inferior tips of the malleoli. Once you've completed the scan and you're happy that you've captured everything, just take a few seconds to review your scan. Then you can press the Submit button at the top, which is the icon with the cloud with the arrow inside it. Once that's been submitted, it will automatically take you back to the Richie Brace prescription form where you can fill out your script. The purpose of using the felt on the inferior tips of the malleoli is to mark out those anatomical landmarks for that patient. That gives us a really good idea of the patient's anatomical ankle joint axis, which helps to customise the brace specifically for that patient. So to summarise, load the foot up as if you were taking a foot orthotic scan, place the felt dots on the inferior tips of the malleoli, and finally, ensure that you've captured all the surfaces of the foot and lower leg for us to model your Richie Brace.